The LA River runs for 51 miles, varying in its beauty and structure. Much of it is currently encompassed in concrete to control flooding, but now there are plans to revitalize the river, affecting the wildlife and the ecosystem that surrounds it. But with those plans come the fear of green gentrification. As the city puts forth an effort to bring the river back to its former glory, the relationship to surrounding communities may be negatively affected as people fear they could be pushed out of their homes. It is safe to say there is a long history connected to the Los Angeles River. This once free-flowing river was used by the Tongva people. It was also used as the main water resource until 1914. Because of the LA River, more people were able to settle in the region and the population continued to expand. The LA River primarily receives its water supply from rainfall and snowmelt. Because of this, it was prone to frequent flooding, often forming alluvial floodplains along the banks. After two destructive floods in the 1930s, the LA River was paved with concrete to help prevent future disasters. The second flood in 1938 came in March after two great storms. The severe flooding was so destructive, at least 113 to 115 people died, as restaurants, homes, bridges, and roads were all damaged or collapsed. It was estimated to approximately $7 million in damage. In 1936, the Flood Control Act passed, stating flood control is a national priority, authorizing agencies to construct infrastructures to prevent flooding. In the 1960s, the concrete paving was finished. This is the LA River we have all come to know, known in many films, television shows, and even music videos. Green gentrification describes the process of implementing green infrastructure into vulnerable communities. There are many benefits to green revitalization within neighborhoods. However, there are also indirect negative impacts. Green gentrification invests in community green spaces such as parks or nature trails. Studies show green spaces are valuable to a healthy lifestyle by providing an area for social engagement, exercise, and decreased noise and air pollution. It has also been proven to help decrease the urban heat island effect that occurs when heat is trapped in cities as a result of human activity. These green space projects have been known to contribute to economic growth, business investments, strengthen civic networks, and social capital, as well as overall improved health both mentally and physically. However, building new community resources in a neighborhood can make the area more appealing, leading to rent increases or displacement of long-term low-income residents. To better understand for myself the issue that comes along with green gentrification, I took a look at different regions of Long Beach along the LA riverbed. My purpose was to see if there is a noticeable difference amongst the varying socioeconomic classes. The average income of each neighborhood varies. However, I noticed that regardless of this, the neighborhood closest to the green space or trail all looked very similar. The first stop was a lower income area, the second was a higher income neighborhood, and the final stop was a middle class neighborhood. I concluded that the community directly next to the green space looked more maintained and a little nicer compared to just a few short blocks away. The projects to improve the LA River will also give us more environmental services or public value, as these restoration projects help recharge watersheds and prevent flooding, while also providing an area for wildlife and native plant species to populate. The problem arises from the local communities once these green spaces are placed. As improvements are made to a community by adding more green spaces, it can also allow the neighborhood to be more attractive to new residents, indirectly raising property rent. This public good indirectly affects the property market, becoming a threat to not only residents but local small businesses that cannot afford a new rental price. The externality of this project can be negative to the local consumer if not efficiently executed. It is also very apparent that the public versus the privatization of a green space makes a very big difference in how well it is preserved. On my excursion, I did notice the upkeep in the higher income communities was better as far as how much trash there was.
This is the San Diego Creek, located in Irvine in Orange County, California. Compared to the Los Angeles River, there are definitely some stark contrasts. For one, the slopes aren't concrete, they're more aesthetically pleasing rocks, and it looks more like an actual river. And just like LA, the San Diego Creek is still in a very urban area, and there are houses that live alongside it. However, the difference in quality is clear. Let's go over some statistics. According to a study by the University of Southern California's Price School of Public Policy, of the 1 million people living along the LA River, 52% are Latino. The median household income of river communities is $45,000 a year, with 18% living at or below the poverty line. Here in Irvine, the city is majority white, as well as Asian. It's mostly white people that have easier, closer, and more quality access to parks and green spaces. And as Tara is about to go over, green spaces increase property value, just like the green space here. In anticipation of the LA project, land values have already increased 21%. In Los Angeles' Frogtown neighborhood, land values have more than doubled. Rents have also greatly risen along other waterfront communities. As you can see with the gated houses that border the creek and green space here, it's pretty clear that wealthier families live here, which means that this is a space only they could afford. Even this green pathway leads to a whole other park, and no one's using the basketball court? This is horrible. Another reason why I don't like Irvine. Imagine having an entire park in your backyard, and if you don't like that park, you can just cross the street. With the current plans in LA, the city and its LA Riverworks policy team currently have a project either underway or in design for every single mile of the river within city limits. In general, of course, this is great for the environment as it'll improve habitat. The improvements will benefit people and nature alike, which is a huge strength. But of course, there's the evil of gentrification. Without government intervention on that part, this is a huge weakness, and the government will have little power in protecting the local community. The San Diego Creek leads to this nature preserve in Newport. The houses that outline the area are worth millions of dollars, and that makes sense, especially when you've got a view like this from your windows. This keeps only the rich, people and businesses in the area. So how can this be fixed? It's a mix of community and government collaboration, and both an information-based approach and market-based approach. The information-based approach would be informing residents about the projects to get them involved in the decision-making process, since the outcome is going to affect them especially. This requires government initiative in reaching out. As for a market-based approach, anti-gentrification policies such as affordable and low-income housing funds and rent stabilization need to be implemented. These would be implemented by the government and community collaboration. The first step is local community input. So this could be something like a city hall. But since there isn't really a step-by-step guide to tackling this, we can only look at examples in other communities. In a case study of Greenpoint, a community in Brooklyn, it was found that working-class residents and gentrifiers collaborated in basically implementing a just green enough approach. According to research in the Landscape and Urban Planning Journal, in certain local contexts, residents can become resilient, resist displacement, and remain in communities whose environments have improved as a result of public and private investments. The Just Green Enough strategy targeted toxic creek cleanup and green space development along the creek near the existing working class population and industrial land users to address both environmental and social justice and to avoid new rounds of speculative development. So it's been done before. This shows us that the approach in tackling gentrification is largely community pressure as well as government backing. Affordable housing and rent stabilization are extremely critical, but it also takes local community involvement to pull through. This collaboration is critical. Government and developers need to seek out community members first with the intent of putting their needs first, or else they'll be in the dark about their own demise. This means bringing them into the discussion and letting them know about what's happening in their own communities. Lucky for these Irvinians, they don't have to worry too much about any of that. And sometimes out of spite, I like to skate here just to scare the rich folks a bit. Who knows, maybe it'll lower the property value.
So therefore, the question is it possible to have green space without gentrification? The answer is yes, absolutely. This is totally possible, and in fact, many cities have managed to do this by working closely with the community. The biggest difference is made in the way it is handled by agencies, government, and the consumer. Although the consumer is kind of at a disadvantage, they still have a voice in what happens to their neighborhood. Though there may still be future dilemmas, there are plenty of anti-displacement strategies nationwide to prevent and protect long-term residents from being pushed out of their communities. Green spaces are essential, especially to city folk, as it can help improve mental health as well. The goal is to improve community conditions without displacement, so that all communities may equally reap the benefits of green escapes in a concrete jungle.